Those who are gonna win are gonna outwork, outlearn, outlast, but also out-strategize the competition. Most YouTube creators have not studied the landscape of their industry and have not thoughtfully analyzed what are the other options that are like my channel. Different is better than better. What are your advantages? How can you use your small YouTube channel to create a big advantage? When you make the ideal product that fits that person perfectly, and that's maybe a little bit too niche, all the other competitors in the space would never narrow down that far, but that's your opportunity. So how can small YouTube creators win against big competitors? In this video, I'm gonna be breaking down 4 strategies that almost nobody is talking about when it comes to getting an edge on YouTube. We're also gonna be talking about must-know YouTube marketing principles that we can learn from military generals. And I actually discovered some YouTube secrets in a book called Marketing Warfare, and I read it so you don't have to. And inside are tips on how you can go from underdog to champion, and I've seen this proven in the YouTube landscape. But I've got to warn you, this episode is a little bit more advanced, and we're gonna get geeky. But if you're ready for it, buckle your seatbelt and let's dive in. In the book Marketing Warfare and its companion book Positioning, 2 classics in marketing, they reveal really the keys to standing out in business and in marketing. And what I realized when reading the books, though, was that these were like manuals for winning on YouTube as well. But it also revealed why a lot of small channels stay small, because ultimately they're approaching YouTube with the wrong approach. So let's talk about the 4 different styles of marketing warfare, and we'll talk about how they apply to YouTube. And then I have 3 specific tips so that you can start winning as a small YouTube channel, hit your income goals, hit your growth goals, but ultimately probably approach YouTube different than you have been in the past. So here's what the Marketing Warfare book teaches. 4 types of warfare. There's defensive warfare, offensive warfare, flanking warfare, and guerrilla warfare. Question is, which one should you be using? And honestly, everybody listening to this should only be using one type. And the reason a lot of people fail is because they're doing defensive warfare when they should be doing guerrilla warfare, or so on and so forth. I'll explain what these mean. So defensive warfare is only for the market leader. Question for you: who's the market leader in your niche? Who is the biggest channel? Who's the dominant voice, or the very few biggest, largest channels in your niche? Offensive warfare should only be used for number 2 and number 3 companies. Who are the second tier channels in your channel topic? Flanking warfare should be used for smaller companies. I would say this would be used for smaller established YouTube channels. And then guerrilla warfare should only be used for local or regional companies. In this case, I would say brand new YouTube channels, and probably you if you clicked on this podcast episode because you're trying to break through an uphill battle where it feels like the competition is too fierce. Here's what's fascinating. As I'm reading this book, I eventually discover that only about 1 or 2 YouTube channels should be doing defensive warfare. They know they're number 1 and they're defending their position. In the book, this would say you're Coca-Cola. You know you're the number 1 cola company, and your job is to just defend your position of being number 1. Offensive warfare, which you might think, I'm on offense, I'm trying to grow, I'm on my hustle. Offensive warfare is only for number 2 and number 3 companies in a field. That means Pepsi and perhaps RC Cola from back in the day, or fill in the blank, another cola brand. They're the only ones that should be actually doing offense. Flanking warfare, so that's maybe, let's call it, 3 of the biggest YouTube channels. You have, and you may have something like, let's say Mr. Beast in entertainment. He's like the market leader. Let's say T-Series, like the market leader. If they just keep doing what they're doing and they keep doubling down the momentum they have, they just kind of are defending their position. Now follow me, because there's a lot of insights here where obviously I'm pulling principles from this book into the YouTube industry. But the big key is, if you're acting like Mr. Beast, by the way, you can't spend $1 million or $2 million or $3 million per video. And critics would say, oh yeah, but I could just say Logan Paul 16,000 times or something like he did on his come up. Well, sure. It's a good point, because that was really weird and really different at the time, but you got to be really thoughtful about where do you sit on this spectrum, and are you approaching YouTube wrong? So defensive warfare, number 1, that's like 1 or 2 channels probably. Offensive warfare is probably like less than 10. Flanking warfare is probably like less than 100. And then guerrilla warfare is everybody else. Here's the good news. There is hope for you. But as a small YouTube creator, guerrilla warfare is going to be the main strategy that you're going to want to focus on. Let's go a little bit deeper before we get into our 3 tips. So defensive warfare is only the market leader. When you're number 1, your goal is just to defend the position. And the way that you innovate or your strategy when you're in defensive warfare is actually to attack yourself, by the way, as weird as that sounds. We're going through these books as a leadership team right now at Think Media, and all 4 of these would apply to you if you're diehard in our community, and I told you this is going to get a little bit geeky. If you know you're a little bit more of in a dominant position, you can never be complacent. Your goal is to attack yourself by improving your own products, reinvent yourself by improving your own videos. But you know you're number 1, or you know you're in a dominant position, but the number 1 leader, and I'm not suggesting we're not, but leaders must attack themselves. Mr. Beast has got to be thinking, man, how do I level up my last video? How do I outdo what anybody who's now copying me, which many people are? How do I attack myself and improve my own products? And all moves by competitors must be matched. All right, offensive warfare. The strengths of number 1 in the market. This is interesting. You identify who is the dominant player in my industry or my niche. What are their strengths? And then here's the key. You find their weaknesses and then you attack at that single point. Interesting. You find the area because everybody has weaknesses and you attack at that single point and you confine the attack to that single point. Hint, both of these strategies, defense or offense, probably don't apply to most of us, but this would be the idea that you could get some of the market share of one of the dominant players because you identify their weakness and you exploit their weakness. By the way, this episode's not for the faint of heart. You're like, this sounds a little aggressive. Well, yeah, the book's called Marketing Warfare. So, I mean, we're speaking in warfare terms. Number 3, this is fascinating. Flanking warfare. You're going to introduce a new product to an uncontested area. Now, this must be a surprise attack and you never advertise it in the beginning, and you pour everything you can into the flanking move to be successful. You find an uncontested area of the marketplace and you just go super deep and you introduce something new to that area of the marketplace. So how do you bring something new to tech and camera tips? Or how do you bring something new to real estate investing and financial advice? How do you bring something new to DIY? How do you bring something fresh that goes? What does flanking mean? It means you're just going around. Huge key. The mistake people make is they look at who the number 1 person is and you think that's your competition. You think about attacking them. You do not attack the market leader. You're going to lose. You don't attack the number 2 and number 3. You're going to lose. You go around. And then number 4, where most of us will land, is guerrilla warfare. And check this out. You're going to find a market segment small enough to defend, and you never act like the market leader. And you're actually ready to move elsewhere at a moment's notice. So guerrilla warfare itself is very disruptive against, you think about a massive military force. Well, what does guerrilla warfare do? It takes it to the trees. It takes it to the forest. It takes it to surprise attack. It takes it to we're nimble. We have a small enough force where we can be fast. We can be nimble. That becomes your opportunity. And my goal in this episode is to get you to think outside of the box. It's kind of a part of a strategy series we're doing here on the Think Media podcast channel to give you hope and help you think outside of the box that the reason a lot of people stay stuck on YouTube is they're acting like the number 1, but they can't compete because you don't got the budget, you don't got the team. They're acting like the market leader, but they're already the market leader. And if you're just trying to be them, you're just an echo of them. And you're even trying to attack the market leader. You're getting, and I don't mean you're actually calling them out or anything, although you may be, but it's not working. And so ultimately your goal is to find a market segment small enough to defend. You find some niche angle. And again, these books were written for businesses, but I know we have a very business-minded community. And so when you start also thinking bigger than your YouTube channel, what is my angle? What is my product? What is my service? Who am I trying to help? What am I going to sell? The guerrilla warfare opportunity for the small YouTube channel becomes, okay, I found a very niche market. And if you haven't listened to our episode about the 13 ways to stand out on YouTube, like I maybe found out that, man, my YouTube channel is video marketing tips for real estate agents. And maybe in America, that now you're starting to have a very specific, it makes me kind of think, and I'm obviously being self-referential here because I'm very well of my industry. So There's a good book. It's called YouTube for Real Estate Agents. I actually don't know if it's good. I haven't read it. But I mean, the reason it's great is I wrote a book called YouTube Secrets with my friend Benji. That book is probably the #1 YouTube strategy book in the world, over 100,000 copies sold. Daryl Eves wrote a book called YouTube Formula. That book is probably #2. Now, by the way, we're not talking about which one's better. Who knows? Maybe they're both terrible. But we're talking about dominance, rankings on Amazon, amount of reviews on Amazon. So follow me. So if you follow the illustration. Now there's others that are also writing YouTube books. Perhaps the trouble is like when it comes to ranking, volume, reviews, momentum, you've got like the #1, the #2, the #3, whoever that is, whatever. Then you've got YouTube for Real Estate Agents. An absolute brilliant title in a competitive place. Like, do you try to write a book to outrank and beat YouTube Formula by Daryl Eves or YouTube Secrets by Sean Cannell? Maybe, but could be a losing proposition. You think about ranking on Amazon. What do you do instead? Completely flank us and write YouTube for Real Estate Agents. Or guerrilla warfare, do something that's even more niche or more specific. In that case, a market segment small enough to defend. Again, you write a book about a niche within a niche within a niche. See where I'm going with this is ultimately your goal is to niche down and find a market segment small enough to defend. If you're still hanging with me in this episode, I've got 3 tips for you. I'm sharing with you my takeaways and insights from marketing warfare, which I know every business owner is loving this conversation. This again is thinking about your product, how it's marketed. I definitely recommend the book and the other book, Positioning. That's the more famous one. It's on its 20th anniversary edition. And subscribe to the podcast because I'm going to have an episode breaking down some tips from that one as well. But before we get into these tips, today's episode is brought to you by findyourtopic.com. And if all of this is all a little bit confusing and in general, you're still like, Sean, I don't really know though how to position my channel, or I'd love to just make all of this stuff simple and figure out what would be the best channel topic for me, where as a small creator, a new creator, I could figure out how to stand out. This class is totally free and it'll help you go from confusion to clarity. If you go to findyourtopic.com, you could register and it'll also help you find the best path to personally earn money and figure out your profitable niche. Here's the cool thing, right? You take a channel like Mr. Beast and he was offered $1 billion and he turned it down. He's got hundreds of staff, I think now, and contractors. He's also got multiple businesses. So again, that's not even your competition, right? He's a whole different sector. You take 100 channels that are at the next level down. That's not your competition either. Your goal is guerrilla warfare, to find your niche, to also realize that we are living in an era where a small YouTube creator with 5, 10, 15,000 subscribers, with the right business model and the right positioning and the right marketing warfare strategy, can earn $38,000, $52,000, $65,000 a year and do this thing full time, whatever your targets are, because again, you found a market segment small enough to defend. So if you're interested in going a little bit deeper, findyourtopic.com. But let's get into these tips that are way outside of the box compared to what most people are telling you, and some insights that came out of this book, Marketing Warfare by Ries and Jack Trout. Number 1, become competitor oriented. All right, this is crazy because what 99% of people will tell you, and in YouTube typically, you say become obsessed with the viewer, which I agree with. By the way, call out to some of our comments. Every once in a while, we get a comment on the YouTube version of this, and someone will be like, you said Reels are going viral, but they're not going viral. Listen, one of the things we have to embrace as leaders is tensions. So some things are not, everybody wants everything to be black and white when a lot of times there's gray in the middle, but they're tensions to be managed. They're not a problem to be solved. So sometimes it's like, well, you said be customer oriented and the creator who understands the viewer best wins. So now if you're saying be competitor oriented and the creator who understands their competitors best wins, which is it? Both. Tensions. So what's fascinating about this is a lot of times you've heard me say, don't compare yourself to the competition. It's your race, your pace. Don't worry about your competitors. Focus on you, which is all true and is also really good for your mental health. But I told you this is going to be a little bit more advanced. The real players that are doing marketing warfare are aware of the competition. They are thoughtful about the competition. They study the competition. Simon Sinek defines it this way. He calls them worthy rivals. And I'm not trying to be so aggressive. Like, this episode might be hard for some people because you're like, does it have to be a fight? Well, business is war in some regard. It's a competition for attention. I can hold intention in myself knowing that there is enough opportunity in the world for all of us. I really believe that. There's 2.6 billion monthly active users. There's a lot of opportunity there. One of the comment I'm referring to that someone brought up was Chalene Johnson recently was like, we're kind of going through a social media recession because there's so many people posting content. And then she's like, but there's also, I don't agree with that. There's also a lot of opportunity. Who's right? Everybody. Not that everybody's always right, but like, yeah, there is, people's attention is getting worn down, so you have to adapt your strategy. But is there also massive opportunity because there's rising consumption? Yes. Friend, I want to ask you, if you want to grow and become a true strategist, you got to be able to embrace tension, saying, okay, yeah, I absolutely need to like be obsessed with the viewer and not worry about the competition. But I also need the maturity to do a competitive analysis and to be thoughtful about what other competitors are there in my space. 99% of small YouTubers have not done very good market research. Most YouTube creators have not studied the landscape of their industry and have not thoughtfully analyzed what are the other options that are like my channel? What are the opportunities? What are the differences and similarities between the top channels in my industry? Like, these things will really help you if you'll embrace this next level of thinking about strategy. So number one, become competitor oriented. I don't mean get insecure. I don't mean like toxically compare yourself, but I mean actually understand what's happening with your competitors. One of the most common pitfalls among strategists is competitive neglect of studying your competitors. We are susceptible to a false mental image too, that our competitors are standing still and we're the only ones moving. So what does that mean? It also means that not only are you trying to grow right now, but so is everybody else. Not only are you trying to break through in your industry, but so is everybody else. So if everybody's moving and there's certain competitors that are moving, this is why you got to get your butt in gear. You got to be outworking, outlearning, out-strategizing, and outlasting the competition. Well, Sean, it feels like an uphill battle. Remember, the competition isn't the million subscribed YouTube channel. It's someone that's in the circle. It's finding the distinction at your size and playing by the rules and strategies and tactics of your size of channel that you should be applying. Successful companies, and I'll insert successful YouTubers today, are competitor oriented. So they are thoughtful. Here's the key. You still are trying to satisfy the viewer. So the question you're asking when looking at the competitors is, what are the strengths of the content that's already out there? What are the weaknesses of the content that's already out there? And then how can I ultimately create some competitive advantages by understanding who's playing defense, who's number one, who should be playing offense right now, the number two, number three, and who's flanking right now. And then if I'm doing guerrilla warfare, I've identified the point of opportunity. If all this sounds hard, it's because it is. But you know what's waiting for you on the other side of finally studying the landscape and then being, there it is. There's that moment. That moment of breakthrough is a 6-figure a year YouTube channel and a 6-figure a year YouTube business. It's on the other side of you studying your competitors and figuring out where the opportunity is.
This video is brought to you by StreamYard. StreamYard is our go-to platform for streaming to YouTube and Facebook with an incredibly easy to use interface for built-in branding, transitions, text lower thirds, and seamlessly bringing on guests. It really is one of the best options when it comes to live streaming. And what's so cool is they've implemented a brand new feature called local recording. Take control of your audio and video with local recordings by separating out your audio and video from your guests. This feature gives you the control over your content for later use, making it perfect for podcasts and video creators. Just go to streamwiththink.com to get started now.
If you think about a chess master, no moves are ad hoc. Strategy might make you a little bit uncomfortable, or you might feel a little stretched of being like, this is a little bit different. Just tell me how to get views. This is how to get views. If you're playing chess, people aren't just like, okay, I like the horsey one. Let me, put him out there. What does this one do? Oh, the queen, she seems cool. Like, no, every move is intentional. And success comes from thinking several steps ahead. Where's the market going? Where are the trends on YouTube right now? Where are people getting fatigued with certain styles of content? Is the Mr. Beastification of YouTube going to be a problem? And what's the next move? How could I position myself now? How could I look at the comments on my competitors' channels to look at what the complaints are and see that as an opportunity? By the way, there's some ninja strategy for you in the midst of our marketing warfare conversation today. Guerrilla warfare is finding a market segment small enough to defend, and finding one that your competitors can't even do because they're too busy. You go to your channels that are your competitors, you read their comments and you see someone saying, I wish you would make videos like this. Listen, they probably want to, but maybe where they at or in their season of life. I just can relate to this because I'm like, we literally have thousands of videos we need to make at Think Media, and that's no joke. And we can't even do that with the team that we have. We're working towards it. We got to pick our battles. Everyone's got to pick their battles, but we're also thoughtful. We're focusing our energy on the most important battles for us right now, which are also bigger battles, or they're related to the size we're at, right? So you think about, okay, there's maybe like a theme in Think Media's comments. There's a theme in my competitors' comments. And that's an opportunity to start a channel or do a video series to solve that specific problem. And then boom, that insight happened, not because you were just customer oriented, or rather viewer oriented. The insight happened because you were competitor oriented. Number 2, become a strategist. Realize that your small YouTube channel could be your biggest opportunity. Realize your small YouTube channel could be your biggest opportunity. Now, a lot of the insights out of this book came from Carl von Clausewitz, who wrote a book called On War. And there's many quotes. Each chapter has like a quote from that book. And here's what he says. The greatest possible number of troops should be brought into action at a decisive point. And there is no higher and simpler law of strategy than keeping one's forces concentrated. The talent of the strategist is to identify the decisive point and to concentrate everything on it, removing forces from secondary fronts and ignoring lesser objectives. While this episode maybe will bomb because, it's a little bit different than we normally do. Or maybe if you love it, let me know and give me your feedback, especially on the YouTube version of the podcast, because that's where comments can be posted. And let me know if you want more of this stuff, or if you're like, I don't know, this wasn't your greatest episode. But I actually think that this is the level of thinking we need to go to become a strategist. Those who are going to win are going to outwork, outlearn, outlast, but also out-strategize the competition. And your small YouTube channel could be your biggest opportunity. Why? Because when you do guerrilla warfare, you just pick a slice of the market. You pick a type of a video series. You find something someone else isn't covering. See, people are doing this every single day in our Video Ranking Academy. They've been frustrated because they posted 50, 100, 200, 250 videos, but then they pivoted a little bit. Then they found a different angle. Then they found a different decisive point. And here's the key. Then they put all the greatest number of troops they have. And remember, you don't have a massive staff, massive budget, millions of dollars to make videos. So you take all your troops, might be you in the 10 hours a week you can devote to this. Your troops is the money in your bank account, the time on your calendar, and it's a very little amount of time and energy. One of the mistakes people make is, again, when you look at the competition, your competition, depending on how far, they have a bigger budget, they have more team, and you're out here complaining and being frustrated, like, if only I had. No. Your greatest strength is your size. You're not trying to go on defense or offense or flank. Guerrilla warfare, you're like, okay, I'm going to find this decisive point and I'm going to put the greatest number of troops against that decisive point. There is no higher or simpler law of strategy than also keeping one's forces concentrated, okay? Sean, make it simple, make it plain. So I look at your YouTube channel. You got 100 videos about a bunch of random topics. Your titles suck. The thumbnails are terrible. And I don't know what your channel's about. It's not concentrated. Or you've got 100 decent videos, decent titles, decent thumbnails, but you're talking about topics that all of the tier 1, 2, and 3 competitors are talking about. And you've diluted too, your topics are all over the place. The goal was to figure out that angle, that niche, that specific point of attack, and then keep your forces concentrated. More important still is the talent of the strategist. We got to become a strategist. Number 2 is to identify this point and then to concentrate everything on it and then remove forces from secondary fronts and ignore lesser objectives. That could be making the wrong videos, but that also could just be stop wasting time on stuff that you don't have energy for. What does that mean? You compare yourself to Think Media. You go, well, Sean is doing vertical video on every platform. Sean's posting 328 pieces of content a week. Yeah, you should not compete with us on that if you're just starting. There's a lot of people helping me, but I built here brick by brick, piece by piece. So if you're imitating what I'm doing, you're diluting your focus. So do you see the connection between the principle of marketing warfare or the principle of warfare in general? You figure out the point of attack and you concentrate everything on it, focus, and then you remove forces from any other fronts. Why are you trying to grow on Pinterest and Facebook and you're trying to build a course and you're trying to write an ebook, you're trying to do all this other stuff and you're barely consistent on YouTube and your strategy on YouTube sucks. Your branding on YouTube doesn't make sense. You haven't done the heavy lifting work of planning out your content and really getting clear on your strategy. You're spread across multiple fronts and you don't have very many forces and you're acting like top tier competitors who have huge budgets and huge staffs and you wonder why you're losing. Become a strategist. The talent of a strategist is to figure out that point of concentration and then align all of the energy you have and resources you have. I don't have very much time and resources and energy. I get it. It's not about your resources. It's about your resourcefulness. So you got to do some guerrilla warfare. You got to take what you have. It's like the 4th Rambo movie, niche reference, where like Rambo always is like one guy versus like a bunch. But he's got little booby traps and tunnels and he's got his thing. And like 100 guys come after him and he figures out how to be the one man. Like you can figure it out, but you got to do it with the booby traps and with the tunnels and with the little gas thing where you light the thing and then everybody burns in the field because you got them. You had gas in the field. They didn't see that coming. You got to become a strategist. Concentrate your forces. Number 3, pick the right battles. So 99% of small YouTube channels especially are spending their time and energy wrong. And here's 2 fallacies. This is interesting. These are 2 myths that people fall into. So one myth, and this will really resonate with us as, business owners, if you get to that level or you have a couple team members or you're thinking about hiring eventually. One is the better people fallacy. So what some people think is that, okay, if I had more talent, if I had like a great editor helping me, if I had all that stuff, and I know that is the currency and language of YouTube, but here's what the myth actually is. The reality of the marketplace is that the way you actually win the battle is through superior strategy. I'm quoting from the book. The way you win the battle is a superior strategy, not by relying on a superior performance by your people. Let me apply this to you, the solo creator. The way you're going to win is by superior strategy, not by your superior performance. And that right there is sometimes an excuse. Oh, I'm just not talented enough. There's just the competitor I'm going against has so much talent that's better than me or has better looks than me. Probably true. And so if that is how you're going to define whether you're going to win or lose, then you've already chosen to lose. But given this, and I hope this episode's coming together, given that you're going, again, I just can't go on offense against this person because I don't have the talent enough. I'm not pretty enough. Is my heart wide open? Is my life too tough? You ever heard that song? Like if you're going against them thinking that superior performance is the key, then someone that is better is always going to beat you. But you've heard us say the quote from Sally Hogshead, different is better than better. That's why you're not going to go against the competition. You either go around them or guerrilla warfare, you go underneath them. You like dig a hole, you dig a tunnel underneath the whole thing and you approach it from a whole different deal. This quote resonated with me so much. I was like, dang, that's so true on YouTube. The key about crushing it in the marketplace is by having a better strategy. And what does that mean in plain terms? It's when you identify your competitor's strengths and weaknesses, you identify your strengths and weaknesses, and then you create a plan, and then you identify the market demands, the market desires. Okay, what problems are unsolved? What are little like fringes of the market? And sometimes you go, okay, maybe this approach to YouTube isn't going to make me a YouTube millionaire, but this approach to YouTube is going to help me build a $50K a year channel in this small market segment that nobody else is paying attention to because I'm willing to write the book on YouTube for real estate agents. And I'm not trying to go against YouTube secrets. And I'm not trying to encourage you not to go against YouTube secrets. Hey, this is a free market. I think I think the market decides. I think that capitalism done right is where it's a meritocracy. May the best player win. But I also believe that we're living in an abundant world, especially with how much demand there is on YouTube and just how many people are consuming content. But it's not, the better people is not the key, or your better performance is not the key. Different is better than better. What is your strengths? What are your advantages? How can you use your small YouTube channel to create a big advantage? Because most small channels are just spending their time wrong. And then the other myth was the better product fallacy. So it was like, okay, the best product always wins. That's definitely not true. This is why they say content is king, but marketing is queen and she runs the household. Like product is king, but marketing is queen and she runs the household. The best product doesn't win. The best marketing wins. But even more specifically, here's how they define it. The problem is that your market's perceived value is actually what wins. True? Let's talk about fashion. Is that designer luxury brand with the Gucci logo on it actually more valuable than the Walmart shirt with the logo on it? It is in the mind of the prospect. Is the actual cotton itself marginally, if at all? That's a branding. Is it the better product? It's the better marketing and branding that won in that case, right? So is this book or that book better? Of course, quality of product matters, but this is why it's a myth. The problem is that marketing wars, like military wars, are not won automatically by the force with the truth on its side. History is always written by the winners, not the losers. What does that mean? Just because someone won doesn't mean it's because they had the best product. It's probably because they had the best marketing. And that does not mean, that's not a defeatist conclusion that you're like, well, shoot, my forces are not good enough, right? My energy's not good enough. I can't compete. No, you find the angle, the guerrilla warfare market segment that you could focus on, and you niche down. You get more specific and you create, is your product better? Let's talk about actually creating a product. Let's say you created an online course. Is your product better? It's not that it's even better than someone else's, that's your competitor's course. It's that it's for a specific person. When you make the ideal product that fits that person perfectly, that fits that market segment perfectly, and that's maybe a little bit too niche, all the other competitors in the space would never narrow down that far because they're already established. But that's your opportunity. Makes sense? So the myth of a better product or the myth of better people or your better performance, those are ultimately myths. What is the ultimate answer? Superior strategy. You might debate that, and I'm happy. This is a place of conversation. And so I'm curious your feedback. I'm curious if you like episodes like this. I'm curious your takeaway. Obviously, you can mainly respond on YouTube. So drop me a comment. What are your insights? What are your aha moments? And do you want to follow up of an episode like this? If you are on Spotify or Apple or somewhere like that, you can rate and review the podcast. In fact, specifically, if you're on Spotify, it'd mean the world to me if you rated the podcast. And then on Apple, you can leave a review and would love your insights. I know this is a little bit different, but I'm trying to pass along the stuff that's inspiring me and the stuff that's impacting me. If you're interested in checking out the book Marketing Warfare or the book Positioning, of course, we'll have those in the show notes. Fascinating reads. And definitely powerful, which reinforce a lot of what we've been learning, right? Strategy is about picking the right battles. With your small YouTube channel, if you're fighting battles that you were going to lose from the start, why'd you fight the battle in the first place? Pick the right battles, position your channel properly, make the right videos. Stop trying to go on offense against the competition and instead go around or underneath the competition, or don't even fight the battle at all. Another book along this line of thinking is the book Blue Ocean Strategy. Stop competing in a red ocean. We don't have time to get into it, but actually go find your blue ocean. And I want to encourage you. I really do believe, confident in my very core, that niche is the new big and that small channels can still dominate, that small channels can win against big competitors, that you can go from underdog to champion when you go to your next level of strategy. And I want to encourage you too, if you made it this far and you haven't seen our new class at findyourtopic.com, not only will it help you, I think, clarify your topic and find the most profitable topic for you so that you can win with a small channel, but I also believe it'll be really helpful if you would say, Sean, I do want to grow as a strategist. I want to think different. I want to think bigger. I've been watching a lot of stuff. Maybe you've been watching a lot of videos and you've been maybe getting conversations that are not at this level. You've been getting conversations that are just about like, let's get the right title on your video, which is very important. Let's optimize the hook. Also very important. But like all of that stuff is tactics. We got to get the strategy right. Let's get the right strategy, pick the right battles. And then tactics are how we're going to successfully be executing the details in those battles. 99% of other YouTube information out there is all tactics. It's what you're getting from most other people. You're getting tactics, which are important. But the underlying foundational core strategy is the game changer. And so I hope you got value out of this episode, and head to findyourtopic.com if you're interested in stuff like this and want to go deeper. My name is Sean Cannell, Rhymes with YouTube channel. This is the Think Media podcast, and I'm excited to connect with you in a future episode.